Hello and welcome to Views on News. I'm Jawad Tehami. The world leaders came up with felicitations as Donald Trump was sworn in as the 47th President of the United States of America, terming 20th of January 2025 as the Liberation Day for the American citizen. During his inaugural address, he made very important statements. Let me quote an excerpt. "My proudest legacy will be that of a peacemaker and a unifier. That's what I want to be, a peacemaker and a unifier. And I am pleased to say that of yesterday, one day before I assumed office, the hostages in the Middle East are coming back home to our family," unquote. Later on, interestingly, upon the inquiry from a reporter at his Oval Office, President Donald Trump said that he was not confident about the durability of the recently agreed ceasefire between the Palestinian resistance group Hamas and Israelis, saying that he was not confident. It's not our war, it's their war. We'll be taking the analysis regarding this particular shift. What does that basically mean? Regarding executive orders, he had already hinted at signing around 100 executive orders on the day one when he enters the Oval Office. He has signed an executive order declaring illegal immigration, fulfilling his long-held promise regarding the crackdown against illegal immigration, particularly declaring a national emergency at the US-Mexico border. He's also signed an executive order that seeks to change the definition of the birthright citizenship, which is a constitutional right. We'll be taking as to what could be the possible hurdles in that particular regard. Also, he has also declared a national energy emergency, promising to fill up strategic oil reserves and export US energy all over the world. By this particular order, the US has also withdrawn from the Paris Climate Agreement. What sort of impact this particular withdrawal of the US is going to have on the global efforts to combat climate change and its adverse impacts. Also, through another executive order, the US has withdrawn from the World Health Organization. We have also known for a fact that he has been a strong critic of the performance of the World Health Organization in terms of handling of the COVID-19 pandemic is concerned, or what sort of an impact it is going to have on the US position as far as dealing with the future pandemics is concerned. We'll be taking the analysis on that front also. And regarding trade, he has said that he is going to tariff and tax foreign countries to enrich the American citizens. He has also talked of taking the Panama Canal back, and he has also changed the name of Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. He had already revoked 78 executive actions of the Biden administration during a rally earlier before his inauguration, and he has also pledged to rescue America from the years of betrayal. All these important matters are for discussion in today's show. For that, we are honored to be joined by Dr. Baqir Malik, foreign affairs expert in the studio. Dr. Malik, thank you very much for your time for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. On Skype at the same time, we are honored to be joined by Mr. Baloch, his former ambassador. Mr. Baloch, thank you very much for your time also for being with us on the show tonight. I really appreciate that. Dr. Malik, let's talk about this particular. When President Trump talks in a way that his proudest legacy is going to be that he wants to be a unifier and a peacemaker. He also took that particular credit for a recently agreed deal between Israel and Palestinian resistance group Hamas, and he has also said that he is happy that just a day before he assumed the office, the hostages over there are returning back to their families. Then later on, a reporter asked the durability of that particular ceasefire agreement, to which the president said that he was not confident. Do you see it a considerable shift just within a span of a few hours, not even a span of a day?
Thank you, Jawad. I think all of these are the reflection of his American First doctrine. That is basically, even he don't want to try to engage the America direct conflict with any other country. And as he has considered himself as the ambassador of the peace, So even before the election or after the election, when he was just elected as a president, you have seen all his speeches, tweet, each and everything is basically absolutely reflection that I am the promoter of the peace, I am the ambassador of the peace. And even when he was just won this election, a survey was conducted through this Oxford University and the European Union, and you will be surprised to know that this survey was conducted more than 28 countries, and more than 30,000 people were actually polled on this survey. So majority, 86% survey is basically, there was a 4 different questions, and one was that Trump will his policy about the peace will practically is a doable or not, and 86% of this survey result was favor of the Trump, that yes, he is the he is the true ambassador of the peace, like this. So all these reflections
Malik,
basically.
but we saw since November 5th election victory, his repeated threat of unleashing the hell, or saying that all hell will break out if the captives held in Gaza are not released before that time he takes office, or he is inaugurated as the President of the United States of America, and that is what exactly we saw happening.
Yeah, exactly. You have seen that the ceasefire, and previously he was taking a credit that, look at that, even I am not taking office, but the ceasefire has happened between Israel and Hamas, and like this. So after that, now what he is trying, like, because this is his personality, aura, unpredictable. So that's where there are, in a foreign policy there is uncertainty.
No, is that the only reason? Is it just because of the personality, or are there other factors at play at this particular point in time? Because such a shift within a span of hours, is it the unpredictability of the personality only?
I don't think so. There may be some major shift like this. This is a kind of political statement like this. So ultimately you have seen that he will try to settle the between Israel and Hamas. Just basically he has a very hard stance against the Iran. So if he want to counter the Iranian influence in this region, he may be settle the good relation with the other Arab country with the Israel, like this. So this is the only one card that he can use like this.
So you are of the understanding that he is going to use his influence as the President of the United States of America and his desire of a peacemaker and a unifier to the durability and the sustainability of this ceasefire agreement between Hamas and Israel.
Yeah, exactly.
Am I correct in understanding?
Yeah, exactly. This is one. And secondly, he actually want to counter the Iranian influence, and he want to he has some policy containment about the Iranian.
And you're of the view to counter that it is important for him that
for
this particular ceasefire agreement remains intact. Let me bring in Mr. G.R. Baloch into the discussion also. Mr. G.R. Baloch, what's your understanding? Do you also have the similar view as Dr. Malik, that this is because of the unpredictability in that personality of the President of the United States of America, that during his inaugural speech he's taking that particular credit for the recently agreed deal between Hamas and Israelis, and then later on, upon a question from a reporter at the Oval Office, he said that he was not confident as to this particular deal will hold or not, and also saying that he was not confident. It's not America's war, it's their war. What sense do you make out of from this particular shift?
Thank you, Mr. Jawad. I think Trump is a phenomenon, and we can really not yet unwrap what he stands for. One second, first and second day of his inauguration still is the same like electoral frenzy that he has put his voters and himself, and he wants to remain and keep that world riveted to him. We must not forget that at the end of the day, he is a kind of a mediocre farmer. He is a reality that was, of course, there are many other points of his credit, but we must not forget that that is where his public exposure was, his reality show. That does tell upon his personality. But I think he stands for something more. He is a disruptor, and there are genuinely shifts in the body politics of the United States. The globalization and then anti-globalization forces, and then we saw a black Muslim president in the US, and at least two women wanted to be the presidents of the US. So there is in my view, at the core, is that conservative Americans. It is that Orthodox Christian church-going American who still has who had felt himself that he was not empowered, and he spoke for them that look, globalization, democracy, values, human rights, multilateralism, that all has resulted in your political disempowerment, economic degradation, and in fact, kind of, as he calls the invasion, or invaders have taken over your country. So his entire worldview and his view of US emanates from his entirely new kind of perspective. Also, that he is, no doubt about that, he was able to feel the pulse of the people, and he spoke what they wanted to listen. And this is where we see him really attaining unprecedented kind of success in the election.
Able to feel that very pulse of the people, and whatever he has been speaking about during his election campaign and during this particular, one of the strongest comebacks in the US history, that he's up to now, fulfilling. We saw that manifestation in the form of an inaugural address, later on those executive orders as well. Mr. Jia Baloch, specific to that particular point, do you also consider it is because of the unpredictability in his personality that he said that he's not confident that this ceasefire agreement is going to hold or not? Earlier he was taking the credit of the return of those captives.
Yeah, definitely. I think he's a thorough politician now. Politicians, they make and break their promises. In fact, the two major PR point that he made before the election, that I'll stop the Ukraine war within 24 hours. And days before election, or just after the election, he said, no, it might take, that I heard actually on an interview that was a day before his inauguration, that no, it might take 6 months or more. Likewise, in few hours, he has changed his stance on the truce or the peace, the ceasefire in Palestine. But I think still there are other forces within Israel, within the US, who think that Israel is, by continuing this war, Israel is not gaining any strategic advantage. So yes, he is kind of scored that PR point, but essentially Israel, there was what is called setting in of the war fatigue in the Israeli system. There were desertions in the army. There were a lot of people sick psychologically. There was a huge exodus from Israel. In fact, their economy had come.
And what about the other voices? What about the other voices from within Israel? Because Itamar Ben-Gvir resigned earlier. We have seen similar sort of a threat coming from the finance minister. We've also seen Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu saying both President Trump and President Biden gave full backing to Israel's right to return to fighting if Israel comes to the conclusion that negotiations on the phase B are futile. I really appreciate that. But looking at this particular statement and that particular opposition from within Israel regarding this particular ceasefire agreement with Hamas, do you think these are the factors that have actually influenced that particular shift that we have seen in President Trump's stance regarding this ceasefire agreement?
Definitely, there was a kind of coming of age of the Orthodox Jews as a political force. It is for the first time that they have been able to make, there were some ministers, yes, in the previous governments, but a full-fledged government, of course, led by so-called liberal secular Netanyahu. So I think they are now in fact, they have a very, what I was reading, a kind of survey of Israeli voting pattern, that the Orthodox, these Jews have actually outnumbered because they have more voters, because they have more children. They have grown up in the past 20 years or two or three decades. So they are a new force. Yes, definitely it will be a constraining kind of a limiting factor in the expectations. But definitely we know that these peace agreements are no peace agreements. We have seen Camp David Accord, we have seen the Oslo Accord, but nonetheless, I think let's just take satisfaction from this fact that at least the Palestinians got a pause from this genocidal war, and while Israel will again reorganize itself, but at the same time they'll also get a breather, the Palestinians, and also there will be some kind of a reprieve at the level of PR, public level as well, that they'll see that how costly this war was for the entire world as such, because the emotional cost, the actual cost to the taxpayers of Israel as well as to the American, basically, not to Israel. So I think there would be an attempt to go through at least first phase. Second phase of the agreement is very, very difficult, as most of the analysts, they agree, because
to the complete withdrawal of the Israeli military from Gaza's enclave.
The conflict will come between the hardliners in the Israeli government and the people who are pushing for the peace. But I think before that, I see, if at all, that the peace lobby in Israel and the Trump administration is serious about it, they will have to probably get rid of Netanyahu. Somebody more interim prime minister with more modest credentials or moderate credentials might come in to go through this, at least this peace agreement, and reach, at least complete the second phase, because with the second phase also is linked up with the release of the rest of the hostages. Now the last phase, the withdrawal, the Israeli troops, and the security. What will they do? How will Gaza be governed? That is the biggest challenge. But I think there are some formulas which have been worked out. A Arab peacekeeping force, or a police force consisting of some interested Arab countries like UAE, Qatar, and so on and so forth. So I think there is probably a genuine feel. The other thing which I probably want to mention,
unfortunately, there's a little bit of distortion. Mr. Jia Baloch, please stay with us. I'll come back to you for your detailed view regarding the number of other aspects. Also, we are honored to be joined in the studio by another participant, Dr. ManzoorAfridi, foreign affairs expert. Dr. Afridi, thank you very much for taking time out for Views on News tonight. Really appreciate that. Firstly, I want your opinion regarding, do you also see it a considerable shift just within a span of a few hours? During his inaugural address, he was taking the credit of that particular ceasefire, and then in his Oval Office, to a question by a reporter, he says that he's not confident about the durability of this particular ceasefire agreement. And secondly, when we talk about the third phase of that particular ceasefire agreement, it primarily pertains to the reconstruction of Gaza. There is also a statement by Trump saying, let me quote, "You certainly can't have the people that were there," of course referring to the Palestinian resistance group, but he's also talked about the rebuilding of the enclave. He's saying that it has phenomenal location on the sea and the best weather, and saying that he might be able to have a role in rebuilding the enclave. What sense do you make of this particular statement when he talks of his role in rebuilding the enclave there?
I think Trump, he has been very much optimistic about all these scenarios going on in Middle East, particularly in between the Hamas and Israel. So he was claiming during his campaign for a ceasefire and for a durable solution of the conflict. And now about this ceasefire, I think he is politician, and just he wanted to gain the sympathy of the people, so he did. Now about the practicability or implementation, or the we can say the pragmatic approach of Donald Trump, of course he has to
gaining the sympathy of the people. in the pre-election time, right? After he was elected the president,
Yeah.
As a result of the November 5 elections, so he had been threatening that all hell will break out if the captives are not released. And during his inaugural address, he took the credit of that he was happy to see just a day before he assumed office to see the captives returning back to their families.
Actually, he is just taking the credit, but I think there are so many things, so many factors to keep in mind within the United States, also in Israel. So there is a strong Jewish lobby in United States. So anything, if it happens, whether there is the ceasefire or the release of the captives or the rebuilding of the Gaza or the durable solution of the conflict or any kind to an end point to the ongoing war between Hamas and Israel, Donald Trump has to consult with the Jewish lobby. I think it's impossible that he can take the solo flight, he can take the
So if the Jewish lobby,
decision.
so you're of the view that the Jewish lobby is the one which is calling the shots in the United States of America. Am I correct in understanding?
Definitely.
So if the Jewish lobby is calling the shots, so why would Jewish lobby want at the very first place that particular ceasefire agreement to be reached between Israel and Hamas?
Because one, there was so much international pressure. The Israel's image that was already very much, that was deteriorated. And from the human rights organizations, from the UN, from the developing world, even from the developed world, from few countries of the Europe as well. So one, just to rebuild its image. And second thing, I think that is that even it was not even in the full advantage of Israel just to prolong the war, right? Because what the objective Israel wanted to achieve, I think they have to a maximum level they have done. For example, the crackdown on Hezbollah and by killing its, the supreme leaders, and also about the Hamas by killing their leadership and by distorting all the supply chain of of the military activities, of the political leadership and all these things. So even it's not in the interest of the Israel as a state to prolong the war.
To prolong the war. So why would Itamar Ben-Gvir and also their finance minister, Ben-Gvir has already resigned. Why would he resign? Just because Israel and Hamas reached this particular deal? And then why would the finance minister say that he's got assurances from Prime Minister Netanyahu that before entering the second phase, they're going to return back to the war?
Well, these are political tactics. We have to compare the international scenario as well as the domestic environment. So what is going on there within the Israel, of course, there are different factions, political parties. They have their own political standings. So they have also to satisfy their own voters. So that all of the people, all of the Israelis, they are not in the favor of ceasefire, and even all of them, they are not in the favor of the war. So some of them they want war, some of them they don't want war. So they have also to play their political cards, right? And they have also to prepare for their next elections and also to enlarge their voting umbrella within the Israel. So it happens, I think, everywhere in every country.
Right. Dr. Malik, before I move to a very important next topic, let me quickly have your very quick and a very brief view regarding as to your understanding when President Trump says, when he talks about the location of this particular enclave and talks of his role in rebuilding the enclave.
I think all this populist approach, Trump is basically all electoral campaign, and after this post-electoral campaign, all his approaches is basically the reflection of his as a populist leader. So on one side, he is basically just trying to convince or convey the message to the American citizen that this problem is not related to the America. So its problem is basically from between in this region, in Middle East region. So we don't care about this.
So on one side, if he is trying to make Americans realize that it's not our problem.
Yeah, exactly.
So why would he talk about his role in rebuilding the enclave?
Then it's also want to give the message to the rest of the world that America is basically the world leader. So he will take like rebuilding and like these kind of activities to play its role at an international level, at international stage. So actually he want to give the message to the rest of the world that okay, this is the problem of this region, but as America on a humanitarian base, yes, America will play its role and it's in our norms and values and like this. So on one side he is just basically trying to convince his conservative voters or a local popular this American citizen. On the other side he is also trying to convince the world community that America is not ignoring like these kind of activities or rebuilding process or to build the infrastructure or to promote the humanity or to work like this. So I think he has a bi-directional approach. One is just a local, national, and other is at a global level. So rebuilding is basically the reflection American role as a America as a global leader.
Basically taking these two different approaches parallel to get the results out of these two, is it doable? Is it?
Yeah, actually in some way it is a doable. The reason is that because you know in this populist approach you need to charge your voter, you need to active your voter or your supporter like this. So you are not saying that I have a one-sided approach like. So even he look at that, his personality is like this. When he talk to the American people are like this, his tone is a totally different. And when he talk to the global leader, his tone is like a different like this. So I think as his approach is basically just trying to convince the world community or just trying to influence his conservative voter or local. So this is I believe that practically even it is possible like this. For example, it's not like a political movement. On a political movement, if he has just started the rebuilding process in the Middle East, America will automatically, you know, on a world stage, it will build its soft image or a soft policies are like this. America is not ignoring this conflicted area. He is promoting the peace. He is promoting the rebuilding or policy like that.
Okay, what about Ukraine crisis? He has also talked, let me quote an excerpt from his inaugural address, we will again build the strongest military the world has ever seen. We will measure our success not only by the battles we win, but also the wars that we end, and perhaps most importantly, the wars we never get into.
Yeah, I think
there was a reference made by Mr. Baloch also that he had been pledging to end the crisis in Ukraine within 24 hours after becoming the president. Comparing these two, how do you look at that?
I think there is two main regions that is basically a top priority of the Trump. One is this European region and other is this Middle East. On a European region, he is basically just, you know, before this during this electoral campaign or after that, he is just trying to settle the dispute between Ukraine and Russia like this. And even a survey was conducted and Russian was also supporting that maybe, and the Trump will settle the dispute between Ukraine and Russia. So his top priority is just like that how to settle this kind of between Russia and Ukraine. So actually he want to disengage the NATO from this conflict and like this. So one reason is that. So his approach, if he will settle this, then automatically, because all his electoral campaign to not to become the part of the conflict or to settle the dispute in Europe, even he was openly criticized the Biden administration when they were supporting the Ukraine or providing a budget or like this. So I think his top priority is that how to settle between Russia and Ukraine are like this, because if issue will start and issue will continue, and automatically directly or indirectly NATO will engage with the Ukraine like this. So actually he is just trying to avoid the NATO to engage in this region. His eyes on to this Greenland. That's why he is not like that want to occupy like that. Even he said that okay, we will pay if you hand over a Greenland, we will pay you like this. So if NATO is engaged with the Ukraine, maybe there is
taking over, having a control over that particular territory. We've also seen he talking about the Panama Canal, and very categorically he talked about Panama Canal taking it back in his inaugural address. So how serious do you think he is on that particular front?
I believe that this Panama Canal is basically just hype is created like this. The reason is that because this is something like an economic issue between this China and like this. Even if you see the statistic that 78% almost these are America, is 68% is America, and only 22% of the China. The reason the why basically Trump is worried about this Panama Canal is due to the Chinese expansion in the Latin America. So already he has control to the this deep sea water that is basically considered America as a direct national security threat. Second, the trade ratio between Mexico and China, that is basically increasing day by day. So for the America, the major challenge is that how to counter the Chinese influence, or like in the Latin America. So Panama Canal is basically why he is taking this issue very seriously, just to control the Chinese influence like that.
Right, Mr. G.R. Baloch, another very important aspect is promise of cracking down against illegal immigration, also reinstating his remain in Mexico policy, declaring a national emergency along the US-Mexico border, also an executive order signed to in which he seeks to change the definition of a birthright citizenship, which is a constitutional right. And there has been a reaction from advocacy groups over there as well. One American Civil Liberties Union saying denying citizenship to US born children is not only unconstitutional, it's also the reckless and ruthless repudiation of American values, unquote. What is this? First of all, I want you to shed a little bit of light regarding as to how this particular birthright citizenship operates, and why President Trump seeks to change the definition, and are there going to be any sort of legal hurdles regarding this particular desire of him through this executive order, because it's a constitutional right, and what would it require to undo that?
See, again, we'll have to go back to what is happening to the US society. There has been, unfortunately, a like pushback on the globalization and immigration, and that is what they feel is hurting, and also that they have a dwindling population of the white Anglo-Saxon who actually feel that that is their country. So if we look at Mexicans' birth rate, if we look at Indian, Pakistani, Bangladeshi, Africans, Afro-Americans, they have huge, they have larger families, more birth rates. While if you look at the Anglo-Saxon white Americans, they have much less. So they feel that perhaps there could be a demographic disaster on them. That is why it is one of the ways to protect the demographic complexion of the US. So this is where I think it strikes. So I think these are all measures by him to, in a way, kind of disrupt the entire society norms to, in his own view of the state of this of US. The other, I think, point that I wanted to say on the international agenda is that perhaps he is aiming at winning the Nobel Peace Prize. There was some analysts also were saying, and my view is also that perhaps contrary to an analysis that he does not have a sense of history and legacy, I think he is a very, very smart guy. He seems that he might be aiming at bringing peace, at least in the Middle East, and perhaps even in Ukraine, thereby making his candidature pretty sure for Nobel Peace. So I think he is aiming at. That is why he says I'm a peacemaker and I don't want to have any wars. Yes, Mr.
Right, Mr. Dr. Afridi, this particular remain in Mexico policy, a national emergency declared along the US-Mexico border. His desire of changing the definition of birthright citizenship, what's required to undo that, it being the constitutional right there?
I think it's, if not impossible, but really difficult, because people, they will not be willing to support even this move. It can creates further hurdles, obstacles in the way of Trump's delivery of its services or policies. To convince the people, to convince the legislators in different states within the US. So it will take time, and then through through voting, through their having bills to be passed from their own, from the Congress, from the House of Representatives, or from
that
the
requires
Senate.
a two-third majority
Two-third majority, yeah, of course.
to undo this constitutional right.
Yeah.
So, do you think that is achievable, or is going to be an uphill task for the Trump administration?
It can be an uphill task, yeah. So it will require more time, more energy.
But given the fact there is a majority of Republicans both in the House and the Senate as well, do you think it's going to be still a difficult or a challenging task for them to achieve this?
But what I consider, it's not only Trump, it's the Republican Party, right? Because Trump, he may remain as the president for this time, even possible not for another third term, right? But Republican Party is there, so they have also to negotiate with the Donald Trump as a president. Of course, they are workers, or they are members of the Republican Party, but they live there. They are the I would say they give their energy they invest their energy within the party activities. So that's why many things to consider. And on the other side, the people, the masses, the citizens of the US, they have also to consult with them. So it will require more and more time for convincing even. So not impossible, but difficult indeed in this regard.
Okay. Okay, your point is well taken. Dr. Malik, what sort of an impact, if this particular move goes through, this executive order of changing the definition of birthright citizenship, and it goes through from the both houses with two-third majority, and that constitutional right is undone? So what sort of an impact it is going to bring?
You know, American Constitution is one of the most rigid constitution in the world regarding this amendment. So it's not easy to take an amendment or use an amendment in the Constitution like this. But American democratic system is one of the best democratic system in this in the world. So American norms and value are different rest of the world. So maybe this kind of like a political statement or like this, but practically it is not possible. Morally, ethically it is not possible. Maybe current even maybe Trump will face a strong criticism from this its conservative voters like this. But how he is defined? Firstly, he used a term like a anchored baby. Anchored baby means it was considering that it is something like this term was criticized inside America like this, and after that he defined that, okay, I am talking about the birth citizen only for the illegal immigrants, not for the legal immigrants like this. So he is basically just trying to differentiate between legal immigrants and illegal immigrants like this. So he is just trying to convince the America like that if there is this baby birth rights are given, on what terms and condition we need to differentiate these two, legal immigrants and illegal immigrants like this. So
what about the demographic factors which Mr. G.R. Baloch already alluded to?
I think this is a more like a human rights issue. It's not like that he will take some amendment in a constitution or like this. With the passage of time, you will see that maybe he will just change his statement, for example, due to this societal pressures, or even from this his conservative supporter pressure like this. So I think practically it's not a possible. And you know, he is when he talked to the media or even to the rallies, he is a very bold and use a very simple and straight words like this. So maybe it's just like only a statement, but practically even president know that practically it's not possible like that we have some amendment or like this. Maybe the reason is that he just want to control the illegal immigrants in the United States. So many people from the Mexican border, they just moved to the America illegally, and so they gave a then this new, I mean, for this babies are like this, they have a American Constitution according to this 14th amendment of this American Constitution, that they are not differentiate between the legal immigrants or illegal immigrant who are there in the birth. Is basically in the United States, automatically he is a citizen of the, he or she is a citizen of the American state. So he want to differentiate between these lines like this. So this is like a political statement. I don't think this is a practical, and he will even continue his statement, or he will continue this policy for a long term.
But executive orders, don't they carry a significance?
Executive order may be, yeah, executive order, why? Because executive order only for a short period of time. It's not like that this is a part, become the part of the constitution like that. Because he has a power to, for this executive order. So that's why executive order is not a constitutional like that. Maybe say today he has signed an executive order, and next day he will say that okay, I am just taking back this executive order and we will change our policy like this. So executive order can take it like a political statement like this.
Okay, Mr. G.R. Baloch, this national energy emergency, also President Trump saying that we'll drill and we'll baby drill, and also sign an executive order withdrawing the US from Paris Climate Agreement. When we talk about global efforts in order to combat the adverse impact of climate change, do you think this withdrawal by the US is going to have a considerable effect on those global efforts?
Yeah, definitely, if at all. If I was to really point out one of the kind of many controversial policy statement that he has made, I think his statement on this simple formulation of drill baby drill was the most unpleasant at least on my ears, and each one of us and all those on the globe who want to see that their future generations have a livable globe. We have a duty, a moral, a legal duty to make sure that the climate change effects are reduced. Of course, we cannot eliminate them. In that very height, when we saw that for the first time in the history, the temperature of the earth increased from 1.5 in 2024. That be the case, and if there is a more drilling by the US, and according to his statement, whatever, if it is implemented even partially, that he wants to again dominate the oil market and be the biggest exporter of oil in the world. So fossil fuel has been the biggest enemy of the climate. It is the history of 200 years of industrialization by the West, and which has really kind of encroached upon, exploited the climate, and still they want to insist on that. I think that should take, I think, the world a strong opposition to this policy of the US, and I think there will be a pushback.
Baloch, I seek your pardon for the interjection, but he has associated this policy of his to the interests of the US and its people, keeping them first.
Yeah, no, indeed. It's not the people. In fact, there's a huge kind of portion of the population which is totally devoted to the climate change. After all, the Democratic Party, which has got at least 48, 49, 47% of the votes. It means the 47% of the population in the US is supporting climate change. It is a very tiny oil barons, that lobby that he is pandering to. So it is, I think, a oil lobby which it is. And the other target, in my view, which maybe, I don't know what will be the comments of other analysts, is that to really impact the price of the oil in the world, to glut it with the...
Short of time, I'll have to wrap the show right here. Mr. G.R. Baloch, former ambassador, joining us on Skype. Thank you very much for taking time out for Views on News tonight. Really appreciate that. In the studio, we're joined by Dr. Baqir Malik, foreign affairs expert. Dr. Malik, thank you very much for your time. Dr. ManzoorAfridi, foreign affairs expert. Dr. Afridi, thank you very much for your time also for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. With that, we've come to the end of today's episode. Till the next one, take good care of yourselves.